Ladies and gentlemen, today we confront a profound and often overlooked aspect of human behavior, the dynamics of relationships with narcissists. The very word narcissist evokes images of charm, manipulation, and a dangerous allure, yet many of us at some point find ourselves drawn to these individuals. Why is that? Why do we chase after those who, by their very nature, erode our sense of self? You see, there's a fundamental psychological truth at play here. When you chase after a narcissist, you are not merely pursuing another person, you are engaging in a battle with your own vulnerabilities, your unacknowledged desires, and most importantly, your need for external validation. Narcissists exploit the very mechanisms of human social and emotional wiring that make us seek approval, affection, and significance. But here's the paradox: freedom and self-respect are not found in pursuit of the narcissist. They emerge the moment you stop chasing. The act of withdrawal, the refusal to be ensnared by manipulation, is not weakness. It is courage. It is the reclamation of your own narrative, the assertion of your sovereignty over your mind and your emotions. Today, we will explore not just why it is destructive to chase a narcissist, but how choosing not to chase transforms your life, your relationships, and your understanding of yourself. This is not a story about revenge or anger. It is a story about reclaiming your power, your dignity, and your capacity for meaningful connection. When you find yourself drawn to a narcissist, it's rarely a matter of simple attraction or coincidence. Beneath the surface, there is often a struggle with your own sense of self-worth. The chase, the compulsion to seek their attention, approval, or validation, is a mirror reflecting unresolved insecurities within you. You may not even consciously recognize it, but the pursuit itself often arises from a subconscious belief that your value depends on being acknowledged by someone who is emotionally manipulative or unavailable. In essence, you are seeking confirmation of your own existence from someone who is incapable of offering it genuinely. By choosing not to chase after a narcissist, you are taking the first crucial step in reclaiming your self-worth. This act is not simply a withdrawal from someone who may be toxic. It is an affirmation that your value is intrinsic, not contingent on external validation. Many people spend years, even decades, giving away their power in the hopes of winning the affection of someone who can never provide it. Every effort, every compromise, and every attempt to meet their impossible expectations chips away at your self-esteem. When you stop the pursuit, you create a boundary, a psychological line in the sand, that communicates both to yourself and the world that your dignity is non-negotiable. This process forces a profound introspection. You are compelled to examine the patterns and vulnerabilities that allowed you to be ensnared in the first place. Perhaps there was a childhood environment where love felt conditional, where approval was hard-earned, or where self-sacrifice was equated with moral goodness. Perhaps societal expectations, cultural narratives, or internalized fears of loneliness led you to believe that tolerating manipulation was a necessary cost of connection. Whatever the origin, stopping the chase requires confronting these deeply ingrained beliefs and disentangling yourself-worth from them. Moreover, choosing not to chase a narcissist is not merely an act of defense. It is a declaration of self-respect. It sends a clear signal to your own psyche that you are capable of prioritizing your emotional well-being over the fleeting highs of external validation. It teaches you that satisfaction and fulfillment come not from bending yourself to someone else's needs, but from recognizing your own intrinsic value. This shift is transformative because it replaces the unstable foundation of dependence on another's approval with the solid ground of self-recognition and autonomy. In practical terms, this means redirecting your energy toward personal growth, meaningful relationships, and pursuits that reinforce your sense of worth rather than undermine it. The journey is often uncomfortable. There will be moments when old impulses and doubts surface, tempting you to resume the chase, yet each time you resist, you reinforce the internal message: you are sufficient, you are whole, and your value is inherent, not borrowed. By standing firm, you break the cycle of dependency and manipulation, and in doing so, you reclaim a freedom that is both empowering and profoundly liberating. One of the most counterintuitive truths about dealing with narcissists is that silence often wields more power than confrontation. In our culture, we are conditioned to believe that engagement, argument, or direct responses are necessary whenever conflict arises. When faced with someone who thrives on control and manipulation, however, this instinct can be disastrous. Narcissists feed on reactions: your anger, your frustration, your pleading. They all provide validation for their inflated sense of self. By responding, by confronting them, you participate in a dynamic that reinforces their power rather than diminishing it. Choosing silence or refusing to chase is not passivity. It is a deliberate, strategic withdrawal that asserts control over the interaction without engaging in destructive cycles. When you stop reacting, you disrupt the narcissist's expectations. They are accustomed to eliciting predictable responses: guilt, submission, or desperation. Silence subverts these patterns. It denies them the gratification of manipulating your emotions, and in doing so, begins to shift the balance of power. This is not a superficial tactic. It has profound psychological implications. By choosing not to respond, you communicate that your internal state, your dignity, your peace of mind, is inviolable. You are no longer available as a source of emotional fuel. In other words, you are reclaiming autonomy over your own mind and emotions, which is the foundation of true self-respect. The act of not engaging also forces a deeper reflection within yourself. When the compulsion to argue or seek recognition from a narcissist subsides, you are confronted with the underlying motivations that drove your previous behavior. Often, it is a craving for validation, a fear of abandonment, or a deeply ingrained habit of placing another's perception above your own values. Recognizing this allows you to break free from the cycle of dependency. Silence becomes a tool for self-discovery, a mirror reflecting your strengths, boundaries, and the emotional resources you possess but had previously surrendered. Furthermore, this approach has a paradoxical effect on relationships and social dynamics. While it may initially provoke confusion or frustration in the narcissist, it gradually reduces the emotional toxicity that has pervaded your interactions. It sets a precedent. Your presence is no longer a guarantee of compliance or submission. Others around you, friends, family, colleagues, observe the boundary you have established, which reinforces your credibility and sense of authority. In this way, silence and non-engagement are acts of both personal empowerment and social signaling. Ultimately, refusing to chase and engaging in strategic silence is an act of moral courage. It is the refusal to participate in psychological manipulation, the recognition that your mental and emotional well-being are non-negotiable. It teaches the narcissist, and more importantly yourself, that true power lies not in controlling others, but in controlling your own responses. This is the subtle yet profound liberation that comes when you stop giving away your energy in the futile attempt to extract validation from someone incapable of offering it. One of the most overlooked consequences of chasing a narcissist is the subtle addiction that develops to the emotional highs and lows of the relationship. When you pursue someone who is manipulative, self-centered, and incapable of genuine empathy, your mind becomes conditioned to crave validation that is sporadic, inconsistent, and ultimately hollow. This is not unlike the pattern of addiction, where the very unpredictability of reward strengthens the compulsion to seek it. Each brief moment of attention or approval from the narcissist becomes disproportionately powerful, reinforcing the behavior of pursuit, even as it undermines your self-respect and mental well-being. By choosing not to chase, you break this cycle of emotional dependence. The obsession with the narcissist is not simply about them. It is about the illusion of satisfaction they provide. The moment you step away, the addictive pattern loses its fuel. You begin to understand that the fleeting moments of recognition were never a reflection of your true worth. They were artificial, transactional, and often designed to keep you entangled. This realization is liberating because it shifts the focus from external validation to internal stability. You start to seek fulfillment in ways that are sustainable, authentic, and aligned with your own values, rather than being manipulated by someone else's ego. Furthermore, refusing to chase forces a recalibration of what you consider meaningful in relationships. Narcissists excel at creating a seductive illusion of intimacy, making you believe that your happiness depends on their attention. When you withdraw, you begin to see that true connection does not require compromise of your dignity, nor does it involve constant negotiation of your boundaries. Genuine relationships are reciprocal, built on respect, empathy, and mutual growth. By stepping away from the narcissist, you free yourself to pursue interactions that nourish your sense of self rather than deplete it. This process also promotes a remarkable degree of personal growth. The energy that was previously consumed by obsession and emotional turbulence is now available for self-reflection, creativity, and meaningful goals. You are no longer trapped in a cycle of reacting to someone else's manipulations. Instead, you can proactively shape your life according to your own principles. This shift cultivates resilience, self-awareness, and a deeper understanding of human behavior, qualities that are invaluable not just for avoiding toxic relationships, but for thriving in all areas of life. Paradoxically, the very act of refusing to chase a narcissist often diminishes their influence even more effectively than confrontation or argument. They rely on your attention, your emotional investment, and your pursuit to maintain their sense of superiority. Silence and withdrawal deprive them of these tools. In this way, your non-engagement is not just an act of self-preservation, it is a strategic assertion of autonomy and power. Ultimately, choosing not to chase is a declaration. Your emotional life belongs to you, and you will no longer allow it to be dictated by someone incapable of genuine care. The emptiness that once seemed so compelling loses its grip, replaced by a profound clarity. True satisfaction is not found in manipulation or fleeting attention, but in the consistent recognition of your own intrinsic value and in the pursuit of relationships and goals that genuinely honor who you are. There is a profound paradox in dealing with narcissists. The act of refusing to chase them, of stepping away from their manipulative influence, is often the very thing that restores your power in the relationship. Many people mistakenly believe that power comes from controlling others, from compelling them to act in ways that suit us. Yet, when the other person is a narcissist, this approach is fundamentally flawed. Narcissists are skilled at turning attempts at control against you, exploiting your desires, fears, and expectations to maintain dominance. True power in this context is not exerted outward but reclaimed inward. By choosing not to chase, you assert authority over your own life, your own emotions, and your own decisions. The paradox lies in the fact that power is amplified by restraint. Chasing a narcissist is a form of surrender disguised as effort. Every attempt to win their attention, affection, or approval feeds their inflated ego while diminishing your autonomy. You may feel that pursuit is a demonstration of strength, but it is, in reality, a voluntary submission. When you stop chasing, you reverse this dynamic. Your non-engagement communicates boundaries, self-respect, and emotional independence. It signals that your time, energy, and attention are not available for exploitation. In effect, your withdrawal becomes an exercise in strategic empowerment. This shift also fundamentally alters the psychological landscape of the interaction. Narcissists rely on predictable patterns of behavior to manipulate and control those around them. When these patterns are disrupted, when the expected chase or emotional reaction does not occur, the narcissist loses their framework of dominance. They are confronted with an unexpected reality. Their ability to influence you is limited. This is not about revenge or vindication. It is about reclaiming the capacity to choose how you engage with the world and who you allow to occupy a central place in your life. The balance of power, once tilted in their favor, begins to normalize. Moreover, refusing to chase is deeply tied to self-mastery. It requires discipline, self-awareness, and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths about why the pursuit existed in the first place. Perhaps there were unmet emotional needs, fears of abandonment, or patterns of dependency that made you susceptible. By recognizing and addressing these underlying drivers, you transform what could have been a cycle of weakness into a profound exercise in personal growth. You learn that your autonomy, your dignity, and your sense of self are not contingent on the behavior of someone else. Importantly, this principle extends beyond the narcissist relationship itself. It teaches a broader lesson about human interaction. The most effective power is not coercive or reactive, but measured, deliberate, and self-regulated. By mastering your own responses, you command influence not through manipulation, but through presence, integrity, and consistency. In this sense, choosing not to chase is both a tactical and moral decision. It protects your well-being while asserting your intrinsic authority over your own life. Ultimately, the refusal to pursue a narcissist reveals a simple yet profound truth. Power is not gained by bending others to your will, but by refusing to bend yourself to theirs. By reclaiming your agency, you restore the balance, protect your psychological integrity, and cultivate a freedom that cannot be taken from you, no matter how persuasive or manipulative the other person may be. When you choose not to chase a narcissist, one of the most profound transformations that occurs is the shift from projection to self-reflection. In many toxic relationships, we are unconsciously projecting our own fears, insecurities, and unmet needs onto the other person. We blame them for our dissatisfaction, for our sense of inadequacy, or for our emotional turmoil, when in reality, much of the turmoil originates from within. Narcissists are expert mirrors. They reflect our own vulnerabilities in exaggerated and often painful ways. By refusing to chase, you remove the distraction of the narcissist's manipulations, which forces you to confront the underlying patterns within yourself that allowed such a dynamic to develop. This process of introspection is not comfortable. It requires honesty, courage, and the willingness to acknowledge traits or behaviors that may be difficult to accept. Perhaps there was a tendency to seek validation externally, a habit of ignoring your own boundaries to maintain approval, or a fear of solitude that led to dependency. By observing these patterns without judgment, you gain insight into your own psyche, transforming past pain into knowledge. This is a critical step in developing emotional resilience. The narcissist's power diminishes not because they change, but because you have learned to navigate your own mind and emotions with clarity and self-determination. Moreover, this internal shift alters the way you approach relationships entirely. You begin to understand that attraction to narcissistic behavior often stems from unconscious dynamics, unresolved childhood experiences, ingrained social conditioning, or past relational trauma. Recognizing these tendencies allows you to make deliberate choices rather than being driven by unconscious compulsion. You are no longer reacting to the narcissist's behavior. You are responding from a place of awareness. This distinction between reaction and response is foundational for psychological maturity and personal growth. Refusing to chase also cultivates a stronger moral and psychological center. Narcissists thrive on manipulation, deception, and the exploitation of weaknesses. When you step back, you establish internal boundaries that are non-negotiable. These boundaries protect your mental health and serve as a guide for how you allow others to treat you. You learn that self-respect is inseparable from discernment, the ability to see through charm, flattery, or intimidation and respond according to your own values rather than external pressure. In essence, choosing not to chase a narcissist transforms the narrative from one of victimhood to one of empowerment. The relationship no longer defines your identity or your worth. Instead, it becomes a mirror reflecting areas for growth and self-understanding. The act of stepping away is not a withdrawal from life, but an assertion of agency, a commitment to observe, learn, and cultivate relationships that are reciprocal, respectful, and nourishing. Ultimately, this journey illustrates a profound psychological truth. The people we chase often reveal more about ourselves than about them. By turning the focus inward, by transforming projection into reflection, you reclaim control over your emotions, your choices, and your life. In doing so, you cultivate resilience, wisdom, and the capacity for authentic connection, while freeing yourself from patterns that once perpetuated suffering and dependency. Choosing not to chase a narcissist is not merely a personal decision. It is a profound act of resistance, both psychological and moral. Narcissists rely on the predictable submission, attention, and emotional labor of others to maintain their inflated sense of self. Every plea for recognition, every effort to please, and every attempt to manipulate your feelings feeds into a system that prioritizes their ego over your well-being. By refusing to participate, you are making a deliberate statement. Your mental and emotional health cannot be sacrificed on the altar of someone else's desire for dominance or validation. This refusal is not passive. It is a radical assertion of your autonomy and a reclaiming of your power. At its core, this resistance is deeply liberating. When you chase a narcissist, you are ensnared in a cycle of anxiety, obsession, and fleeting moments of satisfaction. Each engagement reinforces the idea that your worth is contingent on their attention. By stepping away, you break that cycle and create space to rediscover your intrinsic value, an understanding that your significance does not depend on being acknowledged by someone incapable of genuine empathy. This is the foundation of personal sovereignty, the realization that your life, your choices, and your emotions belong to you alone. The act of not chasing also carries a moral dimension. In a sense, it is an ethical stand against manipulation and exploitation. Narcissists thrive in environments where boundaries are weak, where empathy is exploited, and where kindness is mistaken for weakness. By refusing to chase, you are establishing a moral boundary that protects not only yourself, but also the integrity of your interactions with others. This is a lesson in courage, the courage to honor your own needs, to resist coercion, and to refuse complicity in a dynamic that erodes your dignity. Furthermore, choosing not to chase encourages profound psychological growth. It forces you to confront the discomfort of withdrawal, the anxiety, the doubt, and the urge to seek what is unavailable. By facing these emotions without succumbing to them, you cultivate resilience and self-discipline. You learn to tolerate uncertainty, to confront inner fears, and to maintain stability in the absence of external validation. Over time, this transforms the way you engage with all relationships, creating a foundation of self-respect and emotional intelligence that cannot be undermined by manipulation or charm. In practical terms, refusing to chase opens space for meaningful connections. When you are no longer focused on someone who cannot provide genuine reciprocity, you can invest your energy in relationships that are mutually nourishing, supportive, and authentic. This shift allows you to experience true intimacy, collaboration, and trust, free from the distortion created by narcissistic influence. Ultimately, the act of not chasing a narcissist is an act of freedom. It is a conscious choice to reclaim your emotional, mental, and moral authority. By resisting the pull of manipulation and asserting your boundaries, you demonstrate that your life is governed by your values, not by the whims of another. This decision is transformative. It frees you from cycles of dependency, empowers you to cultivate authentic connections, and allows you to live with integrity, clarity, and a profound sense of self-worth that no narcissist can ever diminish.